Municipalities are, as the saying goes, creatures of the province. That means during a provincial election, the issues that matter to mayors, reeves, city councillors, and urban enthusiasts, big and small, press issues they hope might get some traction. This election is no different. So let's find out what's top of mind this time round. With us from the Shakespearean capital of Canada, there's Dan Mathieson, the longtime Mayor of Stratford, who is not seeking re-election this fall. And in the downtown core of Ontario's capital city, Enid Slack, Director of the Institute on Municipal Finance and Governance at the U of T's Munk School of Global Affairs and Public Policy. And it's a delight to see both of you back here on our airwaves. I want to start, Your Worship, with a pretty basic question. But you know what the heck? Let's get back to first principles here. Explain to us why the relationship between the provincial government and all 444 municipalities in the province of Ontario is so crucially important to what you do. What is it?
Well, there's so much in the Municipal Act with regard to regulation and policy, limiting us on financial parameters, program delivery, and partnerships, whether it be in social services, whether it be with regard to regulation around clean drinking water, that the province sets for us. So they basically set up the financial framework of how we can operate. They are our partner in delivering some of those services. They get to, in the most part, unilaterally decide what that financial arrangement's going to be, and they get to determine at regular intervals when they're going to alter it, and maybe without much notice. So we are definitely creatures of the province. We're their child looking for the allowance for the most part, and we, for the most part, have to go to them on a regular basis, asking for more and trying to justify how programs need to be delivered in our communities.
Do you kind of hate that it's that way?
Well, it's tough to operate, and what we find, one size does not fit all. Small urban centers are definitely different than the GTA and the Golden Horseshoe, as they are in small urban community or rural communities, I should say. And what happens is sometimes the framework that they set works really well in one setting, but doesn't translate well to others. And if the cost formula is the same across all 444, there's winners and there's losers.
All right, let's do a little diver deep on one thing here. Enid Slack, there's something called the Community Infrastructure Fund. What is that?
Well, it's a fund that provides infrastructure money to the small and northern communities in Ontario.
And how important is it to the future of what they're all trying to do?
Well, you know, infrastructure is really important to municipalities. If you look at Canada as a whole, municipalities own 60% of all public infrastructure. You know, that's roads and bridges, it's parks and recreation centers, it's police stations, it's fire stations, water treatment plants. You know, it's a whole range of things that municipalities do. And, you know, there was a recent report from the Financial Accountability Office in Ontario that said the infrastructure backlog for Ontario municipalities is over $50 billion. So that means to get all of the infrastructure that municipalities have into a state of good repair would cost a lot of money. So it's very important.
Mayor Mathieson, the Progressive Conservatives are pitching doubling the Community Infrastructure Fund to $2 billion over 5 years. Sounds like a lot of money until you compare it to the $50 billion that might be necessary. So what do you think of that offer?
Well, Steve, it's a great first step, but it's just not enough. 10% of all tax revenue generated in the country end up at municipalities. But we own, as Enid outlined, a vast majority of the public infrastructure. So while $2 billion is a good start, it's just a real dip in the water. It's never really going to make a difference. We need long-term sustainable planning. And the other thing to think about, too, is the province has made us do an asset management plan and to start tracking our assets. And because we've done that, that report has come out to show the amount of disrepair we're in. So we have fixed one side of the equation where we can identify the volume and the amount that we need to spend. We just haven't fixed the revenue side, which, of course, is always the challenge.
Can you just give us a bit of a bird's eye view of Stratford? What needs do you have? How much money do you have towards those needs?
Yeah, to give you an example, Steve, we have 300 households waiting for affordable housing units in Stratford and Perth County. This year, the city of Stratford is taking on building 25 of them. So just a small portion of what's needed. That's a $12 million dip. There's maybe a couple of $1 million coming from the province, nothing from the federal government. And we're taking that on as a community and debt financing that. At only 25 units, we're going to be a long time dealing with our backlog in social and affordable housing.
Gotcha. Enid Slack, not every municipality of Ontario's 444 is treated the same. For example, the capital city has something called the City of Toronto Act, which was an act passed by the Ontario legislature that treats Toronto differently. Tell us how.
Well, under the City of Toronto Act, I'll focus on the finances. Under the City of Toronto Act, the city is allowed to levy any taxes it would like to levy, with the exception of income taxes, sales taxes, fuel taxes, and a number of other taxes. So I hear you laughing there because, of course, those are the major revenue generators,
right,
and they are excluded from levying them. So what they do levy is a land transfer tax, which, as we know from looking at the revenues, it can bring in a lot of revenues at some times, but it's very volatile. When the market changes, those revenues go down, so it's not a predictable source of revenue. They levy hotel taxes, billboard taxes, but these don't bring in a lot of money.
Well, there was a vehicle registration tax once upon a time, but
yes.
I gather a certain Mayor Ford got rid of that.
That's correct. It brought in about $60 million. A vehicle registration tax, when we look at taxation, there are two parts to it. One is bringing in revenue. The other is changing people's behavior. So a vehicle registration tax is a good example. Didn't bring in a lot of revenue, but it can change people's behavior to get them, to buy fewer automobiles, get in, use cars less.
Right. And Enid, why did Toronto get that special privilege from Queen's Park to do that, and no other municipality in the province does?
Well, I don't know the answer to that. Perhaps it's because of their size, perhaps because they asked for it and pushed for it. I guess there's a feeling that because Toronto is so large relative to other places, that it has the ability to levy these taxes. If others were allowed to levy these taxes, and I think they should be, they might not opt to do it. It may not bring in enough revenues to be worth the effort.
I do remember the City of Toronto lobbying Dalton McGuinty when he was Premier of Ontario, lobbied a lot and eventually got this. Mayor Mathieson, I wonder whether the town of Stratford has gone to Queen's Park saying, Toronto got this act to do all these special things it wants to do. We want the same thing. Was that in the cards?
Well, first of all, we'd actually deal through AMO because we're proud to be one of the 443 members of AMO. The City of Toronto is the only municipality in the province that isn't. I think the challenge will be that City of Toronto got their own act, because when you look at the makeup of the legislature, if you win the City of Toronto and probably most of the GTA, you probably formed at least a minority government. So they've got a different deal than the rest of us. The challenge with municipal taxation, when the economy is good, we don't get a real uplift with regard to our revenue. Our property tax levels are assessed every 4 years. In this case, we've been 6 years without a current value assessment update. We are looking at when that is going to start, and it'll probably be next year. So we'll be 7 years using old values. There's, of course, going to be the political storm that comes when those values go up and people are angry and upset. And the province will have the regulation in place where they can actually temper that. And they probably will because of political backlash. And the people that will lose the revenue or not have the opportunity for revenue will be the 444 municipalities across the province who are going to have to make do with less, probably. And I know that's a skeptical view of it, but it's probably the most accurate one that you're going to see.
In which case, let me follow up with this, because the Green Party is proposing, and I quote here, grant all municipalities the same powers as the City of Toronto to levy a local municipal vehicle registration tax, provided that the funds raised be dedicated to transit and to active transportation. Could you sign on to that, Mayor Mathieson?
That's a great idea, and it's a really good idea. A good example of that would be seeing the municipalities do so across the entire province. It would give some form of stable, regular revenue. You could anticipate it every year, which is important. To give you an idea, the $1 billion was given back in license plate stickers just before the election. If that had gone to the gas tax revenue and was split amongst the municipalities, Stratford's share would have been about $3 million. We would have been pretty happy with that. So it is a little bit of a challenge. And so any type of revenue generation opportunity would be one that we'd want to undertake or at least review and study.
When I hear local politicians say that represents a bit of a challenge, usually that's code for that was a really dumb idea. Am I overreaching here?
Well, it's a little bit of a reach. I don't want to be too critical of the government. They're trying to do what they do best, which is govern across a vast area of land, different sizes of municipalities, and trying to come up with policies they think are resonating with the voters. But it's important to realize that takes so much money to run the system. And it doesn't matter whether it's at the federal level, provincial level, or municipal. The number is the number. So if you're giving it back at one level, you can expect another level of it to actually uptake that room and to ask for the money. And in the case of $1 billion coming out of the system somewhere, it just means that there's probably some expense being moved on to somebody else to cover, and that's why they're going to ask for that money.
Gotcha. Enid Slack, let me follow up with you on the property tax, because that, of course, is the biggest revenue generator that municipalities have control on in order to bring money in to pay for programs. In your view, how well does the property tax work in terms of raising the money cities and towns need to provide services?
Well, I think the property tax is a good tax for local government. It's a good tax because people, when you levy the tax, you can't move your property somewhere else. So the government always has those revenues. You can't avoid those taxes. I think they're related to the benefits you receive from local services. So if you have park near your house, sidewalks, street lighting, transit nearby, that's reflected in your property value. And so in a sense, your property taxes are paying for those services that the local government is providing. And as Mayor Mathieson said, they are a more stable and predictable source of revenue than some of the other revenue sources available. Even during the pandemic, some people delayed paying their property taxes, but at the end of the day, the property tax revenues were being collected. So for a lot of reasons, they're a good tax for local governments to pay for local services. And there's an accountability there. You know, you're getting these services and you're paying the tax. The problem with the property tax is it's a very visible tax. It's different than the other major taxes. And what I mean by it's very visible is that people get a bill for their property taxes and they have to pay it twice a year or 12 times a year. It's money they had and they have to pay over to the local government. Income taxes are different. I mean, if you're on a salary, you're not self-employed, your income taxes are deducted at source. So when you get your income from your employer, those taxes are already gone. So people don't often know what they pay in income taxes over the course of the year. They may know what their refund was on April 30th, or if they had to pay a little bit more, but they don't generally know what they pay in income taxes. Sales taxes, we know in Ontario, we pay 13% on all our purchases. But, you know, even a tax nerd like me doesn't know what I paid last year in sales taxes. You know, I don't know. But I know what I paid in property taxes. People know what they pay in property taxes. And so that's a good thing from an accountability point of view. You know, you're looking at getting roads and transit and sewers and water and all the services municipalities provide, and you know what you're paying for it. There's an accountability there. But it makes it very hard to raise those taxes at budget time. And then we often see at budget time councils committing to not increasing property taxes or only increasing them by the rate of inflation, even if their costs are going up more than that.
Dan Mathieson, is that to say that we like paying property taxes the least because, as Enid says, that's the one we actually have to actively pay, and we don't like paying taxes? Absolutely.
I think what I often try to counter to people is if you were to look at the tax revenue you give the city, and in my case, let's call it $5,500 on my home, I would look around my community and look at the parks, the recreation, the city facilities. I would look at the services that are provided, and I can establish whether or not I perceive value for that. I can't perceive value on some of the larger items at the federal income tax level or provincial sales tax because it's just tough to translate it. And I think it's a communication problem more than anything for municipalities. And too often, I think it's a race to the bottom. Municipal politicians sometimes try to negate things away as best as possible. And in doing so, they don't actually talk about the value they provide in the services. And I think that's important for people. The other thing to remember, too, is a lot of the services we provide are mandated by the province with a certain service level. and asked for us to provide, and legally we have to. We have to do it at a certain level, but the funding doesn't always follow that service level agreement they provide.
All right, let's take a couple of the items that are in the party platforms, and I'll get you two to give me your comments on them. For example, Mayor Mathieson, the NDP platform has a provision here to upload some municipal services to the provincial government. Now, in your view, what should that look like?
Well, I think social services should probably be uploaded. I would like to see us upload some of the costs as it goes with housing, and of course, Ontario Works. Those two are really tough for municipalities to come up with their 25%. And I'd also like to see health unit costs go back up to the province. They set the standard for those services. They are regional in nature, and I believe it's more appropriate for them to cover them off through the Ontario Regional Health Offices or Ministry of Health Offices.
Just a fact check here. Ontario Works is basically welfare, which of course, when the economy goes down, the need for Ontario Works goes up. But your property tax levels are pretty flat. So do you get extra money from the province to help pay for Ontario Works when the numbers go through the roof?
No, they have a standard agreement of 75%.
So that's one reason you really want that uploaded back to the province.
Absolutely.
Gotcha.
And I would say that in the provision of housing. So as an example, when the city of Stratford, the province divested themselves of public housing 20-some years ago, they were given to the city of Stratford to manage for all of Perth County. We have over 500 units. At that time, they were 30 to 40 years old, and we're on the hook for maintaining older properties with little to no funding available to do so.
Well, I think what you're referring to is an exercise that took place back in Mike Harris's time. It was called Who Does What? And essentially it was an exercise to figure out what should the province do, what should municipalities do, and whether there should be any change in those responsibilities. Enid Slack, in your view, is it time for a new Who Does What exercise?
Yes, I think it is. I was on the Who Does What panel in 1996 that resulted in the local services realignment in 1998. And I think we need to do a fundamental rethink of municipal finances in this province. The foundation for municipal finance and governance goes back to the Baldwin Act of 1849. And municipalities were very different in 1849. They were largely responsible for roads and water and sewers. And they had a property tax to pay for it, and that worked. But, fast forward to 2022, and you've got municipalities dealing with the impact of climate change. We just saw those storms last weekend that devastated some communities that need to rebuild, and municipalities have to work on that. We've got a pandemic that put municipalities on the front lines when it came to public health and social services and transit systems. We have rising inequality. We have problems with affordable housing. But when we look at the other side, the revenue side, we still have largely property taxes to pay for all of this. So I think it is time for a rethink of who does what and how we pay for it. But, back in the 90s when we did this, we had this feeling that things should go up to the province or down to municipalities. And I think the feeling now is it's more complex than that. I mean, we maybe need to share some of these responsibilities, but be clear about who is doing what, and also that municipalities have the resources to do their part.
Well, let's pluck an idea here from the Liberal platform. Mayor Mathieson, the Liberals are offering to review municipal fiscal sustainability and the potential to upload responsibility of more critical infrastructure like bridges and roads to the province. What do you think of that idea?
Well, it's a great idea, actually, because in some communities, the number of bridges they have are geographically a challenge for them because of rivers and streams or other impediments that make bridges necessary. I think what will happen is you'll see some of those big ticket items would help municipalities then free up more money for regular maintenance of regular operations, whether it be roads, water, sewers. The other thing to think about with this, Steve, is the gas tax in the province of Ontario is supposed to be used for, of course, critical infrastructure as it relates to roads. And it'd be great if we were using it not only for public transit, but for some of those big ticket items that are daunting for some small municipalities that require them to do regular inspections on those bridges and to maintain them. In our community alone, there are 5 bridges just to get across the river in our community, and they are expensive to maintain, and that's not including some of the other challenges that go with it when we have 1.5 million visitors a year come to our city and use our roads and, of course, go back to other parts of the province.
We've got just a little over a minute left here, and Your Worship, I'd like to give the time to you because you are not seeking re-election, as we stated off the top, and you've worked in the trenches of municipal politics for 3 decades. Give some parting advice to Queen's Park. You're not coming back, but they are. What's the one piece of advice you'd like to pass along to whoever becomes Premier after June 2nd?
I think you need to look at the municipalities as partners. You need to understand that as an order of government, we're the closest to the electorate. We provide the services that touch their lives every day, and that a more transparent, communicative dialogue where we're partners would be far more advantageous to the citizenry of this province. We have great panels and we have working groups, but I think we need to really work on how those get cemented into sustainable operations and how we actually have continual dialogue and a partnership that is meaningful.
And Enid Slack, take 30 seconds just to say whether or not you think provinces actually do treat their municipalities as partners?
Sometimes they do. Sometimes they take unilateral actions, and we've seen that. But we have also seen examples where they've cooperated on housing and social assistance, and so we've seen both. And I think it's possible.
We love the art of the possible. I mean, that is politics. That's the definition of politics. Dan Mathieson, Enid Slack, it's great of both of you to join us here on TVO tonight. And Your Worship, I'm sure we're going to get you on at least one more time before you hang it up in November. So take care, everybody.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is made possible through generous philanthropic contributions from viewers like you. Thank you for supporting TVO's journalism.